Okay, so today we're focusing on one-step algebraic equations, and these are your guided notes. So if we take a look at number 1, we got v minus 15 is equal to negative 28. And according to this, our first step is going to be add 15 on the left side and on the right side. Well, when we add 15 to both sides, it eliminates everything and isolates our variable of v. Now, if we do plus 15 on the left, we have to do it to the right. And when we do negative 28 plus 15, we end up with negative 13 as our answer. So our steps that we need to show or explain is we added 15 because it was the inverse of subtracting 15. We did it to the left side so we could isolate our variable. And we did it to the right side because we had to make sure that our expression or our equation was balanced. So on the left side, we subtracted 15 because it was the inverse. And on the right, we subtracted to keep the equation balanced. I'm going to shorthand that. All right, so on question number 2, I'll move it over a little bit. On question number 2, we have negative 13 is equal to 20 plus x. So in this situation, we're going to subtract 20 on the right side, and that isolates our variable to be by itself. And I then again on the left side subtract 20 to make sure that my equations stay balanced. Now, when I look at this, I got negative 13 minus 20, and that would be the same as adding negative 20. So negative 13 plus negative 20 would give me a negative 33 is equal to x. So I'm not going to write this one all out. My steps are, I subtracted 20 because it is the inverse of a positive 20. Again, I'm looking at positive 20 and not this plus sign because I look in front of the number. So I subtracted. And again, I subtracted on the right side to keep my equation balanced. So x was equal to negative 33. All right, so question number 3. We have negative 14x, and remember, is equal to 84. And remember, when we spoke about this, we said negative 14x means negative 14 times x. And in order for us to undo that multiplication of times, we're going to divide by negative 14. And if I do that on the left-hand side, I have to make sure I do it onto the right. So I divide both sides by negative 14. Over here, negative 14 divided by negative 14 leaves me with 1v. So I have isolated my variable. That should actually be 1x. And then 84 divided by negative 14 is going to give us a negative 6. So our steps here were we did the inverse of multiplication, which was division, which meant we divided both sides by negative 14 to isolate the variable and keep the equation balanced. Running out of room there. Keep equation balanced. All right, so question number 4 says n divided by negative 8 is equal to negative 12. And so our step that we're going to take here is, instead of divide, we're going to do the inverse operation, which is multiply by -8. And if I do that to the left side, I have to make sure I do it to the right side. And when I do that, I end up with, which is not written here, but you end up with -8 over -8 by rules of multiplying fractions, which is equal to 1. So we get 1n. On the left side, we're going to do -12 times -8, which gives us a positive 96. So here, justifying our work, I'm not going to write this one because I ran out of room here, but we are going to do the inverse operation of multiply, which isolates our variable of n to get it by itself. And we balanced our equation by also multiplying on the right-hand side by -8 to get our answer. All right, so our last question is -2/3 times x is equal to 12 which is equal to 12. Now, to undo this -2/3 times x, we actually end up multiplying. Now, we talked about this in class, but remember, technically we're supposed to divide, but we don't divide fractions. We end up multiplying by the reciprocal. And so you can see here, I kind of just skipped that step and I went to multiplying by the reciprocal. If I actually did the math, and I'll put it down here, it would end up being -2/3 divided by -2/3, and I put my x here, so that way we can see the actual math. Now, again, we don't actually divide fractions, we do the multiplicative inverse, which means we would do -2/3 x times -3/2, which is what I showed here in the orangish red color here. And that would be our steps to isolate our variable, because -3 times -2 gives me a positive 6. And 2 times 3 also gives me a positive 6. So I end up with 6/6, which is equal to 1x. And so now our x is isolated. So then on the other side, if I multiply this, I'm going to make my whole number a fraction. I end up with -36/2. And when we do -36 divided by 2, our answer becomes -18. So here, my justifications would be, in order to isolate my variable, I did the inverse operation, which was division. However, we turned our division to the multiplicative inverse, which meant we multiplied by the reciprocal of -3/2. And if I did that to isolate my variable, on the left-hand side, I also want to do times -3/2. And we multiplied straight across, and we got our -18. Okay, guys, make sure you fill in your notes completely. As you can see by my 2 descriptions, they're very detailed. You want to make sure you include everything as if you were teaching someone else, okay? All right, hope that helps. Thanks.